No one even turned their head when the old lady collapsed on the sidewalk, except a dusty farmer girl selling vegetables at the corner. While the city walked past indifferently, that girl ran toward a stranger, not knowing she was saving the richest woman in the country, and no one stopped when the old woman fell. Her body hit the cold pavement, her handbag spilling across the sidewalk as people stepped around her like she was invisible. Cars honked, phones stayed glued to ears, and the world kept moving. But one person noticed, a farmer girl with dust on her clothes and calluses on her hands. She froze for half a second, then ran. Her basket of vegetables crashed to the ground, tomatoes rolling into the gutter. But she didn't care. She knelt beside the woman, pressing 2 fingers to her neck, whispering, "Please don't leave." The woman's pulse was faint. Her lips trembled, trying to speak, but no sound came. The girl shouted for help, her voice lost in the city's noise. Nobody turned. Not one person. She ripped off her scarf and placed it beneath the woman's head, her hands trembling as she tried to keep her breathing steady. Then she saw it, a golden pin on the woman's coat, engraved with 2 words, Hart Industries. The name sounded familiar, whispered even in her village. A company so powerful its logo was stamped on half the trucks that drove through the fields. Finally, the wail of an ambulance broke through the chaos. Paramedics rushed in, pushing the girl aside. One of them froze after reading the name tag on the woman's jacket. "Wait, this is Evelyn Hart," he muttered. The others looked at each other in shock. The girl didn't understand. She just stepped back, her palms stained with dust and the faint trace of blood. As they lifted the woman onto the stretcher, Evelyn's eyes fluttered open for a brief second. Her gaze locked onto the farmer girl's tear-streaked face. Weakly, she reached out, fingers brushing against the girl's wrist, a silent thank you before her eyes closed again. As the ambulance doors slammed shut and sped away, the city returned to its rhythm. People kept walking, traffic kept roaring, and no one remembered the old lady who had fallen. But the farmer girl stood there, heart pounding, unaware that one small act of kindness had just changed her entire life. When the powerful CEO opened her eyes in the hospital, the first face she remembered wasn't her family, her staff, or her board of directors. It was the trembling girl with cracked hands who had refused to leave her side. The monitors beeped steadily, the air cold and sterile. Evelyn Hart opened her eyes to the soft echo of machines and the faint smell of antiseptic. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was or why her chest burned like fire. Then it hit her. The fall, the crowd, the sound of a young girl's voice crying out for help when no one else did. Her assistant, Marcus, stood by the door, pale and nervous. "You collapsed outside headquarters," he said quietly. "Everyone thought you were gone except one person." Evelyn frowned. "Who?" He hesitated. "A farmer girl. She wouldn't leave you. Save your life before the medics arrived." A farmer girl. The words didn't fit in her world of polished shoes and glass towers. People usually served her, flattered her, feared her, but saved her? Never. When the nurse finally allowed visitors, Evelyn watched the door creak open. There she was, thin, nervous, clutching a cloth bag to her chest. Her clothes were plain, her eyes honest. The girl stepped in like she was trespassing in a palace. "You're the one?" Evelyn's voice was softer than she intended. "Yes," the girl said quietly. "I just did what anyone should have." Evelyn almost laughed. No one else did. The girl looked down. Then maybe that's the problem. Silence hung in the room. For the first time in years, Evelyn couldn't find the right words. She'd built an empire by reading people, but she couldn't read this one. There was no greed, no calculation, no fear. Just sincerity. When Evelyn offered her money, the girl shook her head. "I don't want that. Just take care of yourself." That simple answer struck harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. Before the girl left, Evelyn unclipped the golden pin from her coat and held it out. "Then take this," she said. A reminder that not all value is measured in money. As the door closed behind her, Marcus stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "we found something odd." Your car was delayed that morning. Someone changed your schedule. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Her gratitude turned cold with realization. Someone hadn't wanted her to survive that fall. Everyone at Hart Industries laughed when they heard the CEO had hired a village girl to advise them. But they stopped laughing when the farms she touched began to bloom, and profits quietly doubled under her watch. Whispers filled the building when word spread that Evelyn Hart had hired a farmer girl. Executives smirked behind polished desks, calling it a charity project. But Evelyn didn't care. The girl had saved her life, and something about her calm, steady presence made Evelyn trust her more than any of the suits in her boardroom. Lena arrived at the company's agricultural division with nothing but a notebook and quiet determination. While others talked in big words and meaningless graphs, she walked the fields, touched the soil, and listened to the workers no one ever spoke to. She noticed the broken irrigation line everyone ignored, the wrong fertilizer mix, the missing shipments that didn't match the books. She didn't make noise. She made progress. Within weeks, the farm started to recover. Crops looked greener. Workers smiled again. Reports showed rising numbers that no one could explain, except Evelyn, who watched quietly, knowing the answer. It wasn't magic. It was attention to detail, the kind she'd forgotten in her world of meetings and mergers. But the success stirred unease. Some of her senior managers began acting nervous, whispering in corners. Marcus reported strange inconsistencies. Emails sent from Evelyn's account she didn't write, decisions approved she'd never made. Someone was moving against her, and this time, they were smart. Late one evening, Evelyn found Lena still in the field, examining soil samples by flashlight. "You don't stop, do you?" she asked. Lena smiled faintly. "The land doesn't rest when it's sick. You have to listen to it." Evelyn nodded slowly. Maybe that's true for companies too. That night, Marcus entered her office with a grim face. "Ma'am, there's more. The financial trail, we traced it. It all leads back to someone inside. Someone close." Evelyn's expression hardened. She looked out the window at the glittering skyline. For the first time since her collapse, she didn't feel weak. She felt ready. Whoever had tried to bury her had forgotten one thing. She wasn't dead. And this time, she wasn't alone. The more Evelyn trusted her, the clearer the pattern became. Deliveries that didn't add up. Reports rewritten overnight. Someone inside her empire was trying to destroy her, and it was the farmer girl who noticed first. Evelyn had rebuilt herself from the ground up, but now she could feel it. Someone was tightening the noose again. The reports didn't add up. Shipments arrived late, money disappeared from accounts, and her own signature started appearing on documents she'd never seen. She'd run an empire her whole life. She knew when someone was pulling strings behind her back. Marcus dug through files, chasing digital footprints, but it was Lena who noticed what no one else did, a single detail in a stack of invoices. The handwriting on one delivery note was different. The same company name, same stamp, but the numbers were written by hand instead of typed. Small, careless, but wrong. She brought it to Evelyn, her voice steady. "This one isn't real." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. That tiny mistake cracked everything open. They traced the pattern back through shell accounts, dummy suppliers, and fake audits, all leading to one name: Daniel Cross, her trusted vice president. The man who'd served her coffee for a decade while planning her fall. Evelyn didn't flinch. "Get proof," she said. Lena nodded and went quiet for days. Until one afternoon, on a site inspection, she caught Daniel cornering a manager, forcing him to alter reports. She recorded every word. When Daniel turned and saw her, his smirk was venom. "You think anyone will believe a farmer girl?" he sneered. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The next morning, Evelyn walked into the boardroom with the same calm she used before a hostile takeover. Daniel sat across from her, arrogant and confident, until Lena entered and pressed play on her phone. His voice filled the room. Every lie, every threat laid bare. Silence followed. Then came the sound of Evelyn's voice, low, cold, final. "You should have looked closer, Daniel. The girl you ignored just ended your career." By the end of the day, security escorted him out. Evelyn stood at the window, watching the city lights shimmer like sparks in the dark. For the first time, she smiled, not because she'd won, but because someone had finally reminded her that real power hides in plain sight. When the truth came out, the cameras flashed and the world finally saw her, the invisible girl who saved a billionaire's life and exposed a conspiracy that almost killed her. But the reward she received wasn't what anyone expected. The world finally learned the truth, but no one expected what came next. Cameras flashed as the ruthless CEO everyone feared stood on stage, her voice steady but different, softer, human. "When I collapsed, the world walked away," she said. Only one person stopped. A girl no one noticed. The crowd turned as Lena stepped forward, awkward under the glare of lights. She wasn't dressed for fame. Just a plain dress, the same cracked hands, the same quiet eyes. But in that silence, every executive who once laughed at her now looked down in shame. Evelyn didn't hand her a check. She handed her recognition. "I'm creating a billion-dollar fund," she announced, "to empower the invisible, the ones who work without applause. And it begins with her." Reporters shouted questions, flashing bulbs blinding the stage. Lena's voice was barely audible when she said, "I don't deserve this." Evelyn smiled faintly. "That's why you do." After the conference, away from the noise, Lena tried to return the gold pin Evelyn had given her. "You already gave me everything," she whispered. "A reason to believe people still see kindness." Evelyn hesitated, eyes glistening. "Then keep it," she said. "So I don't forget what it means to be saved by someone no one saw coming." That night, for the first time in years, Evelyn Hart didn't feel like the CEO of an empire. She felt like a woman who'd finally learned the difference between respect and fear. And all it took was one farmer girl who refused to look away. A year later, people still called her the billion-dollar girl, but she never cared about the title. While others chased power, she returned to her fields, because she'd already learned the rarest truth of all. Greatness doesn't need to be seen to be REA a year later. The city called her the billion-dollar girl, but Lena never cared for the title. While others built careers off her story, she went back to the fields, hands deep in the same soil that had once stained her clothes. She didn't need fame. She'd seen what it did to people. What mattered was that the villages had clean water now, that women no longer had to beg for loans, and that Evelyn's promise had turned into something real. Evelyn's health had faded, but her spirit hadn't. She watched from her estate as Hart Industries transformed, no more fear-driven management, no more arrogance. Lena's principles had quietly reshaped the empire. The company was finally run by people who listened. When the letter arrived, it came in an unmarked envelope with Evelyn's handwriting, delicate but firm. "You didn't just save my life," it read. "You reminded me what life is for. Keep building what we started. Don't let the world go blind again." Lena folded the letter carefully and pinned the golden emblem to her dress. As dawn broke, she looked out over the fields glistening in morning light. The same world that once ignored her now thrived because of her quiet persistence. No press, no spotlight, just a silent revolution led by a girl who never chased power, yet became the proof that real greatness doesn't need to be seen, it only needs to be felt.